It started with hope. For years, people on Earth had looked up at the stars, wondering if someone else was out there. When the answer finally came, it was both thrilling and terrifying. The first signal from deep space wasn't a mystery, it was a message. Clear, structured, and intelligent. Humanity wasn't alone anymore. The world changed overnight. Governments stopped arguing about small things and started working together. Old rivalries were set aside as nations united under a single mission: to reach out and make contact. The effort was named Project Horizon, and for the first time in history, Earth acted as one family with one goal. After years of work, the first official meeting happened. The visitors were known as the Visha Dominion, tall, graceful beings with smooth silver skin and glowing eyes. They were far older and more advanced than humans. Their ships moved without engines, their voices carried calm authority, and their technology looked like magic. Yet when they spoke, there was curiosity in their tone. They wanted to understand the strange, noisy species from the blue planet, who had somehow survived their own chaos and reached the stars. To the humans, the Visha were gods. To the Visha, humans were children playing with sharp tools. The meetings were polite but distant. The Visha offered technology, advice, and warnings. Humans, in return, offered energy, trade routes, and something the aliens had never seen before: spirit. Humanity's ability to adapt, to dream, to rise after every fall fascinated them. Still, the Visha quietly believed that humans were not ready to stand among the stars as equals. Then came the proposal, a joint space exercise. It was meant to be friendly, a way to test cooperation between the two civilizations. The United Terran Fleet, Earth's strongest and most advanced force, would enter Visha territory and participate in a controlled simulation. It was a chance to show respect and unity. For humanity, it was a chance to prove they belonged in the galaxy. The fleet was massive, hundreds of ships, each carrying thousands of brave men and women. They came from every corner of Earth: scientists, engineers, pilots, and explorers. They weren't going to fight anyone. They were going to represent humanity. Every ship had the same insignia, a blue and white circle with a single word under it: together. Before departure, people gathered around the world to watch the live transmission. On screens, the fleet stood in orbit above Earth, shining like a string of stars. Reporters spoke in excited voices. Families waved at the sky, proud and nervous. For many, it was the greatest moment in human history, the day Earth finally stepped fully into the galaxy. The fleet's commander, a calm, steady leader known simply as the Admiral, spoke his final words before the jump. His voice carried through every broadcast. "We stand as one world," he said, "no longer divided by land or language. We go forward not to conquer but to understand, and if the stars watch us, let them see that humanity is ready." The words touched millions. Then with a bright flash, the ships disappeared into the vastness of space, heading toward the nebula of Veils, a glowing storm of colors on the edge of Visha territory. For hours, the command centers on Earth and the Visha capital monitored the fleet's progress. Everything seemed fine. Messages came in, short updates, routine reports, system checks. Then, at exactly 0247 Galactic Standard Time, the fleet sent its final transmission. "Entering the nebula now. See you on the other side." After that, silence. At first, no one panicked. Space interference was common near nebulae. It wasn't unusual to lose contact for a few minutes. But as hours turned into days, concern grew. Every attempt to reach the fleet failed. The Visha sent long-range scanners into the region. Nothing. No ships, no wreckage, no distress signals. It was as if hundreds of vessels had simply vanished into thin space. On Earth, the news broke like a storm. Every channel replayed the Admiral's last words. Families of the crew waited in tears, clinging to hope that it was just a communication error. Scientists worked day and night to track any trace of the ships. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Some said the Visha had turned on humanity. Others believed the fleet had discovered something and gone silent on purpose. The Visha government held a conference. Their representatives stood tall and emotionless. "We regret the loss of your vessels," they said, "but the responsibility lies with your kind. Entering a region so unstable was unwise." Their tone carried a quiet insult, and humans felt it. The sense of unity that had once filled Earth began to crack. Protests erupted. People demanded answers. The loss wasn't just military, and it was emotional. It was the pride of an entire planet swallowed by the unknown. Behind the scenes, both sides investigated secretly. The Visha wanted to know if humans were hiding something, an experiment, a secret weapon. Humanity wanted to know if the Visha had betrayed them. The truth was that neither side had a clue. The fleet had simply disappeared. Months passed. No clues, no survivors, no signals. The nebula became a forbidden zone, a place of ghost stories and unanswered questions. People called it the Veil's Mouth. Children whispered that the stars had eaten the fleet. Scientists tried to sound logical, but their explanations grew weaker every week. In time, the world moved on. Memorials were built in every major city. The largest one stood in Geneva, a tall silver monument shaped like a ship rising into the clouds. At its base, thousands of names were carved in tiny letters. People visited to leave flowers, small notes, and photos. On the anniversary of the disappearance, the monument lit up, its surface glowing like the ships once did. But not everyone believed the story was over. A few officers in Earth's Defense Command quietly refused to accept that the fleet was gone. They believed something had happened, something extraordinary. They studied old transmission logs, fragments of data, and strange anomalies near the nebula. There were faint energy spikes that didn't match known patterns, as if the ships had shifted into another layer of space. The Visha dismissed those theories as human fantasy. To them, the event was proof of humanity's recklessness. In their records, it was written as the vanishing of the Terran fleet, an unfortunate lesson in cosmic humility. But for humanity, it became something else entirely, a mystery, a wound, and a spark. It reminded them that even in a galaxy full of powerful beings, humans were still explorers at heart. They had lost contact, yes, but not faith. Across Earth, people continued to look up at the stars every night, whispering silent prayers for the lost crew. Some believed they were gone forever. Others swore that somewhere out there beyond the nebula, the fleet was still alive, waiting, watching, and one day they would return. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, the kind of silence that makes you hold your breath, expecting something to happen. The galaxy had moved on, but deep down, a quiet feeling lingered in every mind that dared to look at the stars too long. Something wasn't right. Somewhere, in that bright swirling fog of the nebula, faint echoes drifted across the void. Not words, not signals, just soft pulses of energy like a heartbeat. And if anyone had been listening closely enough, they might have realized those pulses weren't random. They were repeating slowly, patiently, as if someone or something was trying to say, "We are still here." The silence stretched on for months. No word from the fleet. No trace of ships. Not even a flicker of metal on radar. The whole galaxy seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something, anything, to break the quiet. But space stayed cold, dark, and unanswering. At first, the Visha Dominion pretended not to care. They told their people that the humans had simply pushed too far, too fast. Their official statement said, "Humanity's ambition outgrew its wisdom." Yet behind closed doors, the Visha were not as calm as they appeared. They had searched the nebula of veils from one end to another and found nothing. No energy residue, no remains, no explosion marks. It was as if reality itself had erased the fleet. In the Great Hall of the Visha Council, debates grew heated. Their scientists argued that humans might have used untested technology that backfired. Their generals whispered darker theories. Maybe the humans had discovered something inside the nebula that didn't want to be found. Meanwhile, on Earth, life moved forward, but not easily. Every news broadcast began with updates about the missing fleet. Families still waited by their screens, hoping for a message that never came. Some refused to believe they were gone. Others blamed the Visha. A few started calling the whole thing a cover-up. Governments tried to calm people down. They said investigations were ongoing, that peace with the Visha was still strong. But the truth was, no one trusted anyone anymore. The unity that had brought humanity together began to crack. People wanted answers. They wanted to know what really happened out there. In quiet laboratories and dark control rooms, small teams of researchers replayed the fleet's last transmission thousands of times. They searched for hidden codes, background noise, anything. One engineer noticed a faint echo behind the Admiral's final words. A soft pulse that didn't belong to the ship's systems. It repeated 3 times, almost like a heartbeat. But when they showed it to higher officials, it was brushed aside as interference. Still, The feeling that something was hidden refused to die. In the far reaches of Visha space, trading ships began reporting strange signals near the nebula. At first, no one believed them. But more and more freighters claimed to pick up odd repeating sounds, low, distorted, almost like voices. One transmission in particular caught everyone's attention. A merchant vessel recorded a fragment of human speech buried inside static. It was faint but clear enough to chill anyone listening. The voice said, "We see you." When the recording reached the Visha Council, it caused a wave of panic. If it was real, it meant the humans weren't gone. But how could that be? The Visha were a proud species. They didn't like not understanding things. Their best scientists studied the data and concluded that it was likely a trick, a reflection of old radio waves bouncing off the nebula's dense gases. But not everyone agreed. Some of the younger Visha officers had been part of the joint training missions before the fleet vanished. They remembered the humans, their laughter, their determination, their refusal to give up. They couldn't believe that such people would simply disappear. Those officers begged the council to send a new expedition into the nebula to search properly. Eventually, the Visha agreed. A small fleet of scout ships was sent into the region. The mission lasted 7 days. On the 8th, the signal feed cut off, just like before. None of the ships returned. The loss of their own vessels shocked the Visha deeply. Suddenly, the same prideful species that had mocked humans began to fear the nebula. They didn't know whether the humans were somehow alive, or if something else entirely had taken them. In the following months, whispers began to spread through the galaxy. Traders spoke of human ships appearing on long-range scanners for a few seconds, then vanishing. Others claimed to have seen faint blue lights moving silently between the stars. The sightings were always brief, always unexplained. Some said the fleet was haunting the nebula, trapped between worlds. Others swore the humans had returned, hidden in a new kind of space. A name began to circulate in the quiet corners of the galaxy: the Ghost Fleet. Back on Earth, the government tried to stay rational. They called the reports unreliable, the stories false. But even the scientists who spoke against the rumors couldn't ignore one fact. More and more signals were being detected near the nebula, all repeating the same strange pattern of pulses: 3 short, 2 long, 3 short again. No one could decode it, but some believed it was a message. Among ordinary people, the story of the Ghost Fleet took on a life of its own. Children played games pretending to be part of the vanished ships. Street artists painted murals of glowing vessels sailing through clouds of light. Musicians wrote songs about lost explorers who could still see everything, even from the other side of reality. But for the families of the real crew, the rumors were painful. They wanted proof, not stories. Every time a new signal appeared, they gathered in front of news screens, hoping. Every time it was dismissed as false, they went home in silence. The hope that had once lifted humanity now hung heavy, like a promise no one could keep. Then one day, something unexpected happened. A small communication array on the edge of Mars detected a faint signal. It was weak, unstable, but clearly structured. It wasn't Visha technology, and it wasn't any known human frequency either. The message repeated over and over for almost 6 hours before fading completely. When decoded, it wasn't words, it was coordinates. They pointed directly to the nebula of Veils. The news leaked before officials could contain it. Within days, the whole world was talking about it.
"They're alive!"
The headlines shouted. "The fleet is trying to contact us." People flooded the streets in celebration, even though no one knew what those coordinates meant. Scientists warned that it could be a coincidence, a natural pattern. But for humanity, hope was stronger than logic. The Visha, however, reacted differently. Their leaders ordered all ships to stay away from that area. They quietly reinforced their borders and increased surveillance. To them, this wasn't a reunion. It was a warning. One of the Visha admirals, known for his calm nature, finally spoke publicly. "If the humans truly have found a way to exist beyond normal space," he said, "then they have changed the balance of the galaxy forever." His words spread across every star system. The idea that humans, once considered fragile and inexperienced, might have discovered something beyond the reach of ancient alien empires. It made everyone uneasy. As time passed, more strange reports came in. Mining drones vanished near the nebula. A few ships claimed to receive unknown pings that matched old Terran encryption keys. A cargo hauler even reported being followed by a large shadow that matched the outline of a human battleship. But when they turned their scanners, nothing was there. The galaxy was no longer laughing at humanity. It was watching them carefully, nervously. On Earth, people began referring to the vanished fleet as the Watchers. It sounded comforting, as if their lost explorers were still out there, keeping an eye on their home. It became part of human culture, part of their hope. Every year people gathered under the stars, lit candles, and said the same words. We are still one. We are still seen. Yet behind the hope there was fear too. Governments began to wonder, if the fleet really was alive, what had they become? How were they surviving? What did they see inside that nebula that no one else could? The Visha quietly banned any travel near that region. Officially, they said it was for safety. Unofficially, they were afraid. Their scientists could not explain how the human signals kept reappearing. Every equation, every test failed to make sense of it. But somewhere deep in the nebula, something was moving. Faint ripples of light shimmered like reflections on water. If anyone could have looked closely enough, they might have seen shapes. Massive metal forms drifting silently, their surfaces glowing faintly blue. And within those ships, maybe, just maybe, people still stood watching the stars from a place no one else could reach. No one knew for sure. The Visha wouldn't admit it, and humans couldn't prove it. But one thing was certain. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with whispers, faint, strange, and endless. The universe had lost a fleet, but something else had awakened in its place. And soon everyone, Visha, human, and every other race more, would realize that the story of Earth's fleet was far from over. Because what vanishes without a trace doesn't always stay gone forever. Sometimes it learns to return in ways no one can imagine. Months turned into years, yet the mystery of the vanished fleet refused to fade away. The nebula remained quiet on the surface, but deep within it, something strange was happening. The whispers were growing louder, not just on scanners, but in stories and rumors, in every corner of the galaxy. The Visha Dominion tried their best to keep things under control. They released official statements saying that all strange readings from the nebula of veils were just natural distortions. But no one believed that anymore. Too many ships had gone missing. Too many pilots had seen lights that didn't belong to any known vessel. Among the Visha, fear began to take root. Entire patrol routes near the nebula were closed. Captains started avoiding the area even if it meant longer journeys. Some said they could feel a presence out there. Something watching, something waiting. It wasn't only the Visha who felt it. Humans, too, couldn't let go of the mystery. A new generation had grown up hearing stories about the fleet that vanished without a trace. The ghost fleet had become a symbol of both pride and sadness, and pride because they represented humanity's courage, and sadness because no one knew their fate. But deep inside the research stations scattered across human space, there were people who hadn't stopped searching. They didn't believe the fleet was gone. They believed the fleet had changed. One day, in a quiet laboratory orbiting around Jupiter, a technician noticed something strange while scanning deep space frequencies. There was a repeating pattern in the noise, and faint, almost invisible. But when he enhanced it, the pattern became clear. It wasn't random, it was organized, it was human. He immediately sent the data to Earth. Scientists confirmed it was an encoded signal that matched the unique transmission style used by the United Terran Fleet. The signal wasn't strong enough to decode fully, but one word stood out. It said, home. The discovery caused a wave of excitement. Governments called emergency meetings. Even the Visha were informed, though they reacted with cold silence. They didn't like the idea of humans reappearing with technology even they couldn't understand. Soon, more signals began appearing, short bursts of data from different corners of the nebula. Every one of them carried the same pattern, as if someone was trying to reach out from another layer of space. The words were short, simple, and human. Watching. Together. Here. Human scientists couldn't explain how the messages were being transmitted. No known system could send signals through the dense energy field of the nebula. But there they were, clear and real. The Visha tried to jam the frequencies, hoping to stop the panic spreading across the galaxy. But jamming didn't work. In fact, the more they tried to block the signals, the stronger they became. Traders began to report even stranger things. Ships would travel near the nebula and suddenly experience short bursts of static, followed by what sounded like human voices whispering over their comms. Some claimed they saw faint blue lights moving between the stars, lights that seemed to form the shape of enormous ships before fading away. One freighter captain described it best in his report. It wasn't a ghost, it wasn't an illusion. Something was there, watching us. It felt human. The Visha Council finally sent a group of scout ships equipped with advanced probes into the nebula to confirm what was happening. They promised it was a peaceful mission, meant only for investigation. But their true goal was simple. They wanted to know if the humans had somehow survived. The scouts entered the nebula with live transmissions broadcasting to their home base. For the first few hours, everything seemed fine. Then the connection began to distort. The visuals broke apart into static, and just before the feed cut out completely, one of the pilots shouted something. What he said froze everyone who heard it later. "They're here!" Then the transmission ended. The entire fleet vanished without leaving a single trace, and just like the humans had. That event changed everything. The galaxy stopped laughing at humans. Even the proud Visha began to whisper. The same question everyone else was asking. What did the humans find inside that nebula? Within weeks, the story spread everywhere. People began calling it the Shadow War. Not because there was fighting, but because shadows were moving across the stars, unseen and unstoppable. In remote mining sectors, equipment would suddenly power down, and strange marks would appear on their metal surfaces, almost like handprints. Some said the humans were watching from another dimension. Others believed they had merged with the nebula itself, becoming part of it. No one knew the truth, but everyone felt it. Humanity had not disappeared. They had evolved. Back on Earth, people gathered in massive crowds to look up at the night sky. The government kept quiet, refusing to confirm or deny the new rumors. But every once in a while, when the atmosphere was clear, citizens claimed to see something strange. Tiny flashes moving high above, far beyond any orbiting satellite. "They're still out there," people would whisper. "Our fleet, our people." Even children who hadn't been born during the disappearance began to feel connected to it. Teachers told the story in classrooms not as a tragedy, but as a reminder of human courage. "They didn't vanish," one teacher said to her students. "They became something greater. They became the watchers of the stars." The Visha Dominion didn't like this new belief. They wanted control, not mystery. They feared what humans might be capable of if they truly returned. So they sent one more mission, not with ships this time, but with drones. Thousands of small machines, unmanned and disposable, designed to record and analyze everything. When those drones reached the nebula, they began sending back data: fog, energy distortions, magnetic waves, the usual. But then something unexpected appeared in their readings. There were structures inside the nebula, huge ones, not random rock formations, geometric shapes like towers or stations. The Visha scientists froze as they realized what they were looking at. The patterns matched human designs. The drones tried to go closer, but one by one their signals blinked out. The last frame recorded showed a massive shadow passing in front of them, a shape that looked exactly like a Terran battlecruiser. The Visha immediately shut down the mission and locked all reports. But it was too late. Some of the data had already been leaked to neutral planets. Within days, the galaxy was flooded with images and recordings of what looked like a human-built base hidden inside the nebula. Everyone was stunned. Could it be true? Had humanity built a new home beyond normal space? The evidence was hard to deny. Some scientists believed the fleet had discovered a new kind of travel, a way to move between layers of reality, where time and space didn't work the same way. They called it phase space. In that state, a ship could exist in multiple places at once, invisible, untouchable, but very real. It was beyond anything the Visha or any other race had ever achieved. As the rumors spread, something strange began happening across different systems. A few Visha patrol ships reported being followed by invisible forces. Their scanners showed nothing, but their engines would suddenly shut down, as if something had interfered. Some officers heard soft voices in their communication lines, human voices, whispering a single word before everything went dark. Enough. No one died. No one was attacked. But the message was clear. It was as if the missing fleet was sending a warning. We're still here. Don't come closer. The galaxy was left speechless. In time, a quiet respect began to grow toward humanity. No one dared mock them anymore. No one dared invade their borders or threaten their colonies. The humans had gone from being seen as newcomers to being viewed with awe and caution. The Visha Council debated endlessly, but no amount of science could explain what had happened. One of their historians finally said something that stayed in every record. When the humans entered the nebula, they disappeared, but when they vanished, the stars began to whisper. And from that moment on, the nebula wasn't seen as a graveyard. It was seen as a gateway. A place where humanity had crossed a line that no one else dared to cross. Those who believed in hope said the fleet was waiting, watching over Earth from beyond normal space. Those who feared them said the humans had become something else, something the galaxy wasn't ready to face. Either way, everyone agreed on one thing: the humans hadn't been defeated. They had simply gone somewhere no one else could follow. And somewhere, deep within that shining storm of colors, faint blue lights moved once again, ships gliding silently through layers of reality, unseen but never gone. The ghost fleet of Earth was awake. The galaxy had stopped questioning whether the humans were alive. Now everyone wanted to know how. The strange signals, the vanishing scout fleets, the silent shadows moving through the nebula. It had become too much to ignore. Even the proud Visha Dominion, once so sure of their power, now faced a truth they didn't want to admit. Something incredible had happened inside the nebula of veils. Years of investigations, denials and cover-ups could not hide it anymore. The humans hadn't just survived, they had changed. On a quiet day in a research station orbiting Visha's home planet, a small team of scientists reviewed the final data from the last drone mission. The images were blurry, distorted by radiation, but one sequence stood out. It showed a massive structure hidden within the nebula, not a natural formation, but something built. Its surface shimmered with strange lights pulsing in slow rhythm, almost like breathing. And across the surface of that strange structure, faint symbols could be seen. They weren't Visha markings. They were human letters. It was the insignia of the United Terran Fleet. That discovery spread like fire. The Visha tried to keep it secret, but the data leaked within days. Soon, every major news network across the galaxy was broadcasting the same image: humanity's lost fleet. Not destroyed, but reborn. People across Earth wept when they saw it. The families of the missing crew gathered around screens, hands trembling, whispering prayers of thanks. For years they had mourned, but now there was proof. Their loved ones had not died. They had built something extraordinary, somewhere beyond reach. The Visha Council met in emergency session. Panic had begun spreading among their colonies. Some feared that the humans had found new weapons or technology beyond imagination. Others believed the humans had learned to live in another dimension, where the laws of physics no longer applied. One Visha general, older and wiser than most, said softly, "If the humans have learned to walk between worlds, then we are no longer their teachers. We are their students." That line was quoted everywhere. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders faced a new challenge. They had always hoped for peace, but now even their allies were cautious. Other alien civilizations began reaching out carefully, some offering friendship, others quietly preparing defenses. Everyone respected the humans now, but everyone feared them too. For months, scientists from both sides studied the nebula again. They noticed something unusual. Its energy field had changed since the humans vanished. It was no longer chaotic. The magnetic waves pulsed in repeating patterns like a heartbeat. Some even matched the rhythm of human communication signals. It was as if the fleet had connected to the nebula itself. Then came the most shocking discovery of all. A Visha science ship exploring the far edge of the nebula detected a drifting vessel. It was heavily damaged, its engines dead and its outer shell scarred. At first they thought it was one of their own lost scouts, but when they brought it aboard for inspection, they realized it was something far older, a Visha transport ship that had disappeared decades earlier. Inside, they found data logs still partially working. The recordings showed images of battle, bright flashes of light tearing through space. But it wasn't a normal fight. The attacking ships weren't using standard weapons. They didn't even seem fully solid. They flickered in and out of view like reflections in water. The logs ended abruptly, but not before one frame froze. A faint outline of a human ship glowing faint blue, moving at impossible speed. When the recordings were played for the Visha Council, the room went silent. No one spoke for several minutes. Finally, a voice broke the silence. They have learned to travel beyond the physical world. The statement sounded almost unbelievable, but it fit everything. The humans hadn't disappeared, they had shifted. Somehow the fleet had discovered a way to move between the layers of space itself, where time and matter worked differently. They could see everything, move anywhere, and vanish before anyone could react. The scientists named this new phenomenon quantum phase space. In theory, it was impossible. No known civilization had ever achieved it. Even the Visha, with their ancient knowledge, had failed to make it more than a theory. But the humans, those unpredictable beings from a small blue planet, had done it by accident. The Visha called it an ascension. When the humans entered the nebula of Veils, the fleet's experimental drives had interacted with the nebula's energy field. Instead of destroying them, it had pulled them into a new layer of existence. There, they were neither fully physical nor entirely energy. They existed in both states at once, invisible to normal scanners but still present. From that realm, they could observe everything happening in the galaxy, but the galaxy could barely sense them. It was said that the fleet had become the silent domain. After that discovery, small signs began appearing everywhere. Communication satellites in distant systems would pick up bursts of coded data. Military outposts reported sudden power fluctuations followed by system resets that left behind messages written in old Terran code. Always short, always calm, peace first. Still watching. We remember. These messages were not threats. They felt more like reminders. Gentle, steady, like a voice from the past guiding those still bound by ordinary space. The Visha, once so sure of their superiority, began to feel humbled. They started to question themselves. For thousands of years they had ruled through fear and authority. But now, a younger race had found something far beyond power, understanding, and humanity, rather than using that power to seek revenge or domination, stayed silent. They didn't strike. They didn't demand anything. They simply watched. This quiet presence began changing the galaxy. Wars slowed down. Pirate groups disappeared from border zones. Even rival empires started negotiating peace deals they would have never considered before. Everyone had the same unspoken thought. The humans are watching. Back on Earth, the people felt it too. Nights were filled with strange glows in the upper atmosphere, like distant auroras. Some said it was natural. Others whispered that the fleet was visiting, quietly, unseen. One evening, a message appeared across human communication networks. It lasted only 5 seconds before vanishing completely. It wasn't sent from any known source, but every receiver on Earth, from radios to satellites, picked it up. We are home. Keep walking forward. There were no explanations. No coordinates. Just those words. For days the world stood still. Every person, every leader, every scientist read those words again and again. It was like hearing a loved one's voice after years of silence. It didn't matter how it was possible. It mattered that they had spoken. Meanwhile, the Visha Dominion, now humbled and cautious, sent a quiet message of respect to Earth. For the first time, they referred to humans not as young ones, but as fellow travelers. It was their way of admitting what they had long denied, that humanity had achieved something even the oldest species had not. The galaxy began to change in ways no one could measure. Exploration programs multiplied. New alliances formed. People no longer looked at humanity with doubt. They looked with awe. Still deep inside the nebula of veils, something vast continued to move. Silent, glowing, unseen. The fleet had become part of the universe itself, bound to the rhythm of the stars. They could not return to the form they once had, but they could protect. They could observe. Some said they were now guardians, invisible protectors of humanity's path. Others believed they had simply evolved beyond the need for a single planet. Whatever the truth was, one fact remained clear. The humans had gone where no one else could go, and they had come back stronger, wiser, and more mysterious than ever before. When children looked up at the night sky, their parents told them, "The stars are not silent. They are full of stories, and one of those stories is ours." The legend of the vanished fleet was no longer a tragedy. It was a promise, a reminder that courage, curiosity, and unity could lead even the smallest species to greatness. And though the galaxy might never see those ships again with their eyes, they all felt the same quiet certainty whenever the stars shimmered a little brighter than usual. Somewhere, beyond the limits of space and time, humanity was still there, watching, guiding, waiting. The ghost fleet had not vanished after all. It had simply stepped ahead of everyone else, into the next chapter of existence. The message, "We are home, keep walking forward," had changed everything. For years, people had searched for answers. Now those 5 simple words filled every heart on Earth with both hope and wonder. Scientists tried to decode the message's origin, but no device could trace it. It hadn't come from space or any known transmitter. It was as if the words had appeared out of the air itself, carried by something unseen. But humanity didn't question it too much. They didn't need proof this time. They felt it. Somewhere out there, their people were alive and not just surviving, but watching, protecting, waiting. Still, Earth couldn't just stand still. The world began to move again. The return of the fleet, or at least the hint of it, inspired a new wave of unity across nations. Borders grew softer. Old rivalries faded. People began to talk about exploration again, not war. The new space programs were unlike anything before. They weren't built to conquer, but to connect. The first goal was simple: to reach the nebula of veils where the fleet had vanished long ago. Not to invade, but to understand. It took 10 years of preparation. 10 years of building new ships, powered by both human technology and knowledge shared by friendly alien civilizations. The ships were sleek, silent, and designed for deep space endurance. They were named the Pilgrims. When they finally launched, the entire planet watched together. There was no single leader giving orders this time. Instead, representatives from every nation stood side by side, watching their people lift off toward the unknown. The journey to the nebula took months. Along the way, the crews encountered strange signals, rhythmic pulses that matched the same pattern found years earlier. The signals seemed to react whenever the ships adjusted their course, almost like they were being guided. As they neared the nebula, everything around them began to change. The space there shimmered with light that moved like waves of liquid silver. The energy fields were alive, not dangerous but aware, as if the nebula itself was observing the visitors. And then, without warning, the ship's systems went silent. Lights dimmed, engines powered down, and the crews found themselves floating in quiet stillness. No alarms, no damage, just silence. One of the captains reported that something strange was happening outside. The stars seemed to move differently, bending slightly, as if space was breathing. And then slowly, shapes began to form out of the shimmering mist. At first, they looked like faint outlines of ships, long, elegant, and glowing faintly blue. The human crews stared in disbelief. These weren't illusions. These were ships, massive, ancient-looking, but alive with light. The lost fleet had appeared. The communication systems flickered to life on their own, showing a single symbol on every screen, the emblem of the United Terran Fleet, the same one that had vanished generations ago. A calm voice followed, neither mechanical nor ghostly, but human, warm and steady. "You have come far. We are proud." No one spoke for several seconds. Every heart on those ships stopped beating for that brief moment. The voice continued, gentle and clear. "You walk the same path we once took. Do not fear what you cannot see. We are with you." The crews couldn't respond, and their systems weren't transmitting, but they didn't need to. The message felt personal, almost like it was being spoken directly into their minds. The glowing ships of the vanished fleet moved slowly around them, forming a circle of light. The nebula's clouds shifted, revealing vast structures deep within, floating platforms, shining towers, and energy flows like rivers of stars. The fleet hadn't been destroyed at all. They had built a new home inside the nebula, beyond the edge of physical reality, a place between dimensions, a living space that connected thought and matter. One of the explorers whispered. They became part of it. The fleet began to pulse with light as if answering. The signals matched human heartbeats, slow, calm, unified. Then another voice came through, softer but still filled with strength. We learned what the galaxy forgot, that unity is stronger than fear. The nebula showed us how to listen to the universe instead of fighting it. As the crews watched, they realized the glowing ships weren't just made of metal anymore. Their surfaces shifted like energy and matter woven together, constantly changing shape. It was as if the ships were alive, an extension of the people inside. One of the scientists aboard the Pilgrims realized what it meant. The missing humans had merged their consciousness with the energy of the nebula. They were still human, but evolved, beings of both flesh and light able to exist anywhere, anytime. The realization brought tears to many eyes. Humanity had always feared the unknown, but here was proof that even in the darkest void they could adapt and grow. The vanished fleet then began sending waves of light toward the human ships. The waves didn't harm them, instead they restored power, healed damaged systems, and even improved them. The crews felt warmth spreading through their ships as if they were being gently embraced. Then the voice spoke again. You must return now. The path forward is yours to build. The stars belong to all who seek with open hearts. Before anyone could respond, the light around the ships began to dim. The outlines of the vanished fleet started to fade one by one, merging again with the nebula. But just before disappearing completely, a final message echoed through the void. We are not gone. We are everywhere light touches. And with that, the nebula returned to its quiet, shimmering state. The human ships slowly regained full control. Their scanners showed no signs of any structures or ships, as if the entire vision had been a dream. But when they checked their systems, they found new data, designs, energy patterns, and formulas far beyond anything humans had known before. The journey home was filled with quiet reflection. Every crew member knew they had witnessed something extraordinary. They had seen what humanity could become, what it was meant to become. When the Pilgrims returned to Earth, they were welcomed as heroes. But none of them spoke with pride. Instead, they spoke with calm respect, as if they had visited something sacred. They told the story of the fleet, not as ghosts, but as guardians, teachers, and friends. The new data they brought changed everything. Within years, humans developed clean, limitless energy. Space travel became faster and safer. Diseases were cured using knowledge drawn from the strange hybrid science of the vanished fleet. And more than that, humanity learned humility. They no longer sought to dominate space, but to understand it. The dream of peace among the stars started to feel real. The alien civilizations who had once feared Earth now came forward with open arms. The Visha Dominion, once proud and cold, sent their first emissaries to Earth not as rulers but as guests. They apologized for their arrogance and asked to learn from humanity's new understanding. In response, Earth's leaders simply said, "Let's walk together." Across the galaxy, stories began to spread, of mysterious lights appearing during deep space storms, of lost ships suddenly finding safe paths home, of strange, soft voices heard in the dark saying, "Keep walking forward." People began calling these events the fleet's blessings. Some scientists said it was just the universe echoing the humans' legacy. But deep down, everyone knew. The vanished fleet was still there, unseen but present, guiding, protecting, reminding. Every year on the anniversary of the fleet's disappearance, Earth held a silent night. No fireworks, no noise, just lights turned upward, glowing softly in honor of those who had gone beyond. And sometimes during those nights, strange blue glows would flicker across the sky, just for a few seconds, like ships made of light sailing above the clouds. No one tried to explain it anymore. They simply smiled and whispered, "They're watching." Humanity had learned something beautiful, that greatness didn't come from power or weapons, but from courage, curiosity, and unity. The vanished fleet had proven that even when everything seems lost, the will to explore, to hope, and to believe can take you farther than any engine ever could. And somewhere in the endless night of space, the fleet continued its journey, unseen, unbound, eternal. They were no longer just humans of Earth. They were the voice of every explorer, every dreamer, every soul who ever looked at the stars and whispered, "What if?" And in that whisper, the galaxy kept moving forward, slowly, peacefully, beautifully, just as they had wished. Years passed since the day the fleet's message echoed across space. "We are not gone. We are everywhere light touches." The words had become more than just a mystery. They became a promise, one that reshaped the galaxy itself. Humanity was no longer seen as the young, reckless species from a small blue planet. They had become something greater, the bridge between civilizations, the symbol of peace and the reminder that even in the deepest darkness, light could find a way. But what truly changed was not just technology or power. It was the spirit of humanity itself. Before the fleet vanished, humans were driven by competition, by who could go faster, who could conquer more. But after their return, everything felt different. People no longer looked at the stars with fear or ambition alone. They looked with wonder, the same wonder their ancestors had felt when they first looked up at the night sky on Earth and dreamed of flying. The new generation grew up hearing stories of the vanished fleet, stories of courage, discovery, and transformation. In schools, children learned not only about history and science, but about kindness, empathy, and unity. Every classroom had the same quote written on its wall: "Keep walking forward." That phrase had become humanity's motto. It meant moving forward no matter what, not with anger or pride, but with hope. Across the galaxy, something remarkable began to happen. Old rivalries between alien species began to fade. The Visha, once known for their arrogance, now worked alongside humans on shared research stations. They even admitted publicly that they had learned more from humans in a single century than they had in 1,000 years of isolation. Other civilizations followed. The once feared Kyoth, who had lived hidden behind energy shields for ages, opened their borders. Trade, knowledge, and friendship began flowing freely among the stars. It was a quiet revolution, not fought with weapons, but with trust. And at the center of this new age stood Earth, not as a ruler, but as a guide. The United Terran Council became a council for all. Humans invited representatives from every known species to join a great assembly in orbit around Earth. The gathering was held aboard a massive space station named the Horizon Gate. It was designed not just as a symbol of cooperation, but as a living city among the stars. The opening ceremony was unlike anything ever seen before. Thousands of voices from hundreds of worlds came together. No single language dominated. Instead, a new universal translation field allowed everyone to understand each other perfectly. Not just words, but emotions too. And when the lights dimmed and the crowd fell silent, the images of the vanished fleet appeared above them, not as ghosts, but as shimmering memories made of light. A calm voice spoke once more, the same one that had been heard inside the nebula of veils. "You have chosen peace. The path ahead is yours." For a long moment, no one moved. The hall filled with quiet tears and soft smiles. Everyone understood this was not an illusion. It was a message from the fleet itself, one final blessing for the new era they had inspired. From that day on, the galaxy entered what historians would later call the Age of Light. In this age, exploration became a shared mission. Human ships traveled alongside Visha scientists, Kyoth healers, and many others. Together, they reached corners of space that had never been mapped. They discovered planets with strange skies, stars that sang in radio frequencies, and ancient ruins that held traces of civilizations long gone. But what amazed everyone the most was how often they found signs of the vanished fleet. Not physical remains, but energy traces, symbols etched into asteroids, soft glows that appeared whenever someone faced danger. One time, during a rescue mission in deep space, a crew trapped near a collapsing star claimed to see human-shaped lights guiding them towards safety. Their ship's recording showed nothing unusual, but all sensors registered a sudden burst of energy that matched the same pattern found in the old Terran fleet's codes. Stories like that spread everywhere. People didn't call them miracles. They called them reminders, proof that the vanished fleet was still out there watching, protecting, and teaching silently. As the years rolled on, technology continued to evolve. Humans developed new ships powered by energy drawn directly from the space-time fabric itself, an idea inspired by what the vanished fleet had achieved. These new vessels could travel vast distances in seconds without harming the environment. They were named Lightwalkers. Every Lightwalker ship carried the same emblem, AC or glowing circle surrounded by smaller stars, symbolizing unity among all civilizations. The first Lightwalker was sent on a special journey, to return to the Nebula of Veils, not for exploration this time, but for gratitude. The crew aboard that ship was a mix of humans, Visha, Kyoth, and 3 other species. They didn't go to ask questions. They went to simply say thank you. As they entered the nebula, the same calm beauty greeted them, waves of light moving like slow music, space folding gently around them. They activated a transmission beacon and sent one simple message: to those who walked before us, thank you for showing us the way. There was no response for several minutes. The crew waited in silence, hearts pounding, eyes fixed on the glowing mist outside. Then suddenly their ship's interior filled with soft blue light. The walls seemed to shimmer and an image appeared, the outlines of human faces, faint but smiling. A voice spoke, gentle and proud. The universe remembers kindness. Keep walking forward. Then the light faded. When the ship returned to the horizon gate, they shared the message with the entire galaxy. No one could hold back their emotions. It was as if every being, human and alien alike, felt the same warmth spreading inside them. The vanished fleet hadn't disappeared. They had become part of the universe itself, guiding all life toward peace and understanding. In the following decades, humanity's influence spread not through control, but through inspiration. Art, music, and stories from Earth reached every world. Children on distant planets learned to say keep walking forward in their own languages. And on Earth, life had changed too. The skies were filled with lights of visiting ships from many worlds. Cities became melting pots of cultures, where humans and aliens lived side by side. The planet that once looked small and fragile in the vastness of space had become a beacon, a home for everyone who sought peace. Every year, during the celebration of the Day of Light, millions gathered under the stars. They released lanterns into the sky, glowing softly, representing the spirits of those who had gone beyond. The explorers, the dreamers, and the vanished fleet. When the lanterns rose high enough, sometimes the stars above would flicker brighter, almost as if answering back. People would smile and whisper, "They're still walking with us." Generations passed. Empires rose and fell. Technologies changed. But the message of the vanished fleet never faded. It lived in every heart, every explorer's dream, every moment of compassion shared between strangers from different worlds. And though thousands of years went by, the galaxy never forgot the humans who vanished into the light. In the farthest corners of space, among stars yet unnamed, travelers sometimes reported strange sightings, glowing trails across dark skies, voices whispering in forgotten languages, soft laughter carried by cosmic winds. No one feared them. Everyone knew who they were. The fleet of light, the guardians of the path, the first ones who listened. And on Earth, under the same blue sky where it all began, a child once asked their teacher,
Do you think we'll ever meet them again?
The teacher smiled gently and looked up at the stars. "We meet them every time we choose kindness," they said. "Every time we help instead of hurt. Every time we look at the stars and remember that we are all connected." That was the legacy of the vanished fleet. Not power, not fear, but hope. And as long as even one person somewhere in the galaxy whispered those words, "Keep walking forward," the fleet would never truly be gone. Because light, once born, never really disappears. It only travels farther, lighting the way for others. And so the story of Earth's vanished fleet ended, not with silence, but with a gentle truth. They hadn't vanished. They had become the light that guided the universe home.